Hello and welcome to the BG podcast. My name is AJ Bingham, founder and CEO of Bingham Group. In our previous episode, we discussed the Austin San Antonio megaregion with the Honorable Henry Cisneros. In a follow episode, we're now speaking with AJ Rodriguez, the newly minted CEO of the Central Texas Alliance, which is the the official name of the division, the kind of the organization that Mr. Cisneros had envisioned. So with that, welcome to AJ to the show. And good to see you. It's been a long time.
AJ, good to see you from AJ, my
Yes,
tocayo.
exactly. Well, again, as we discussed before the show, we spoke with Henry, talked about his book from last fall, and I know this idea has been brewing for some time, and it came to real clear, a clear view going into early this year with discussions that Henry was having both in Austin and in San Antonio. Um, and we're here today now that it's officially been launched as of earlier this month, I think July 14th. I saw the press release to discuss the Central Texas Alliance with you and what it all means. And with that, I'd love to start with me an intro of yourself
Yeah,
and your high level, your
sure.
background.
No, I appreciate that, AJ, and thank you for the opportunity. And I appreciate our service together on the Austin Chamber Board and the role you've taken in that leadership realm to support this endeavor. In the aspect of making sure the Austin Chamber is engaged with a regional approach. This was pretty serendipitous in terms of the timing. I had a chance to visit with Henry. Ran into him of all places at a Texas barbecue joint, and he had already had some conversations based on the incredible, successful book, Mega Region, that was co-written by Henry and Bob Rivard, David Hendricks, that essentially had a call to action right at the end of the book and said, we need to put something in place and an organization or a structure that ensures continuity and discipline around bringing these different stakeholders together from throughout this region, which used to be a corridor along I-35, but has fast become a column of growth, not just north and south, but really east and west, encompassing 13 counties around our MSAs, respective MSAs in Austin and San Antonio, five in Austin, eight in San Antonio. And it was an opportunity where I was at Texas 2036. In fact, this is my last week at Texas 2036 part-time, so I owe them an amazing amount of gratitude because they've been really supportive and helpful in allowing me to get this off the ground while remaining with them and transitioning my work in relation to strategic partnerships and external affairs there. And as a result of their generosity, we've been able to stand this up fairly quickly. You mentioned you talked with Henry earlier this year about the book. It was still a concept in February, and here we are today. I'm about to start full-time August 1 as the inaugural CEO, as you mentioned. We're established 501(c)(6). We've got a website up and running. We've got 35 founding steering committee members from along the entire stretch from Austin to San Antonio and New Braunfels and San Marcos of individual business leaders that really want to see this off the ground. And so they've been very encouraging and motivating in helping us push through. And now we're at this next step of widening that concentric circle to more stakeholders throughout the region, which has kept me pretty busy these
Magic.
last weeks.
Well, building off that, then okay, so it's August 1st. You're in the driver's seat as CEO. We've from the last several months, right? You had discussions with business leaders, the community, key community members. So you've got this founding group here. For folks, that next wave, right? What is your pitch to them? What is the Central Texas Alliance being created to do?
Right. Well, I'll first start off by saying, this is a long time coming. So that's been part of the conversations that we've had with our steering committee. It's about time we do this for Central Texas. The North Texas Commission, which encompasses the DFW area and their surrounding regions, and I'm pretty close with the CEO there, Chris Wallace, who's been doing a phenomenal job of running that organization. They've been doing this for 50 plus years. They're responsible for the creation of the DFW airport, along with a number of education initiatives, physical infrastructure initiatives related to water security, et cetera. And then you have Houston, for instance, with the Greater Houston Partnership. And because of my time at Texas 2036, I've really been able to glean off of their experience and emulate some of the models that they've created for success. And they've been doing it for 25 plus years. And then you have places, AJ, like the Borderplex Alliance in El Paso, that doesn't just do this from a county to county perspective, but they also have encompassed and work with Ciudad Juarez in Mexico and New Mexico. Because when you take a flyover on a helicopter, it's a big community and it's all one region. And I think there's a lot of markets that see us that way. And it's about time we start to see ourselves that way because we're complementary as it relates to the kind of work that we can establish together, the opportunities, the challenges. Some of them are different, some of them are the same. But our mantra is like, what can we do that now one city or county could do alone,
Hmm.
right? And how can we be one region and one voice in representing and advancing the entire region, which is the size of 5+ million people, larger than the state of Louisiana, and will be adding 3 million more the size of Chicago between now and 2050, which is just a short time from now, as we all know.
Hmm. It resonates with that contiguous, talking about with the borderplex because just I grew up in Austin, and even that drive to Schlitterbahn, that annual summer drive or parents driving, but you get out of Austin proper, and you're in Hayes County, and it was all fields, countryside. Until you got to New Braunfels, you could see the water slides kind of coming in, like that was like their skyline. Now, as many of us know, I mean, I'm sure the same way coming from San Antonio to Austin, right?
That's
Now,
right.
what it is continuous, I mean, by and large, continuous development along that corridor, and then stretching out. I mean, to the point, I know New Braunfels, city of New Braunfels is having growth issues and like things beyond Thoroughbahn because people from both Austin and San Antonio kind of moving kind of closer and closer.
That's right. I mean, that's why I think we could call it a column of growth. I took a flight from Dallas to Austin recently, but you could see along the horizon it was at night, and it was just completely covered with civilization. I mean, there was lights everywhere, and then there's just one little stream that covers that entire expanse, and that's I-35. It's
Hmm.
like in terms of the congestion that we're experiencing there, and I think there's movement to try to leave some of that in terms of the transportation funding that's come from the state and working to address it, but it's something where we just can't build out of it. There's just too much to move people and goods, over time, and we're not just responding to the growth anymore, AJ. It's really like, or not preparing for it, we're responding to it, and we have to respond to it in a collective way that creates some efficiencies, that also creates some relationships between the two cities, so we can not just two cities, the 120 cities that represent this area, and also the 13 counties, and understand and build some awareness around what's happening in Atascosa and Wilson, where water is not as significant an issue based on the conversations I've had with their county judges, compared to what's happening in Williamson, where water is an issue and economic development is flourishing in that area. And they're, 600, 700,000 strong now and about to grow even further. So yeah, those are the kinds of areas that we want to focus on related to education, workforce. We want to make sure that we're looking at land use planning and management, healthcare, housing affordability, and of course, energy, mobility, and water are some
Hmm.
of the top ones in terms of categorically, how we're going to approach this in working with this region to develop consensus around the issues that are priorities, especially leading up to the 90th legislative session coming up in January.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about just where uh, government-wise you saw or the alliance will be engaging in. So we have state legislature. Do you see any federal components there at all, and also on the local government side, both county or commissioners courts as well as cities?
No, definitely. Part of what we've done so far, through the initial formative stages, is really ensure that we have the private sector that's working towards starting this. And then we're bringing in now we're at the stage where we're bringing in there are public sector partners, but we also want to include universities there. We would include other nonprofits. We would include the COGs that represent both Austin and San Antonio Council of Governments, and also mobility authorities, utilities, the airports. If we pitch a big tent and have these kinds of a platform where we can have real conversation about what are the priorities and what should we focus on sooner than later as a region, I think we can make progress there as opposed to doing that independently and alone,
Hmm.
and not having that awareness, right? Where are the complementary aspects of the region, and where can one region lend a hand where and also benefit from another portion of the region's prosperity and assets, right? So having an inventory of those assets, understanding where the complementary opportunities are, and then leveraging those through building relationships first and then trust,
Hmm.
I think be critical.
Yeah, and I know it's something that came up in Henry's book, was about, we look at kind of the models to follow. I think North Texas Commission was the prominent one. And there are some similarities, but also differences, and a lot was geographic proximity, right? While we have with Austin and San Antonio is a bigger, we have a lot of continuous development between, but the cities proper are just further spaced out than a Dallas Fort Worth are, right? And then with the airport, with DFW, the airport being kind of the tie between both. But still, opportunities. And so, just how are y'all thinking about the challenges to address first? Because that is a wide swath. There are commonalities but differences between San Antonio and Austin and in between. And where just what that's it could be a million issues. I mean, 10
Yeah.
or 20 issues to tackle. What is that? And I'm sure that's ongoing now, but what is the thought process behind uh, arriving at those key pillar issue, foundational issues, especially as we approach the legislative session in
Yeah.
January?
No, I appreciate that. And I think, AJ, this is where process really comes into play in ensuring that inclusivity, expand that reach. So we're bringing the stakeholders and the leaders of the respective communities under that tent that I mentioned, ensuring that there's a voice that everybody has an opportunity to weigh in. So what I've done is try to create a structure to begin those conversations where we've already heard these are some of the significant issues, right? The categories I mentioned earlier, such as energy, mobility, water, right, and workforce, et cetera. So once we create that construct, is there a way for us to then move into specific issue areas that are number one, short term, because we want to provide and demonstrate results early, and harmonize that with how do we also keep our eye on the ball for some of the long-term projects and keep the sustainability of the organization moving forward, to be able to address those collectively. But also not getting out in front of us and saying, you know what, we need X, Y, or Z right now, because we are in the period of really trying to gather that information. When I sit down with the county judges so far, I've learned a lot about things that you don't necessarily, glean from Google, right? Or find out from papers that may exist already, but really understanding what's happening on the ground in those communities. I took a page out of the Texas 2036 book, and I made a commitment to go to each of these locations, to be in the community, to understand specifically what's happening there, so it can inform. And we're also taking that down from a content perspective and developing some county profiles that will help inform what the region needs as a whole, and where the strengths and weaknesses are, and what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities that lie ahead. And then that'll help us to, when we get together on our public launch, we intend in September to bring this group together collectively, for them to be able to go through a workshopping with us, that'll able to say, if we had to force rank those 7 categories potentially, what does that look like, right? What are we being formed with? And then specifically, are there projects today that are already on the books that maybe just need a bump through an endorsement from us that would help get them over the finish line? And then what are the long-term projects? And then what are the projects that don't necessarily require legislative action at the state and federal level, but that we can support because they're initiatives that lead to infrastructure or other amenities that lead to the quality of life for the region. So those are kind of the way we're approaching this. I'm going to be really careful that people understand like this is not an agenda that we're going to set and then we're going to ask folks to come in and just stamp it. That's really important that we
Yeah.
develop this consensus concept and not a vote by majority in terms of this is what 51% of these folks want X, Y, or Z versus what's the consensus around this? Can we truly build a consensus around the issues that we need?
Yeah, on come back on that note too, is it structure will there be a governing board and then membership or how that for folks again this is assuming this stays September 1st. I'm a business in Austin or some individual or whatever else and I'm looking to join. What all will that entail?
No, I appreciate that. We do actually have a membership structure that emulates what the North Texas Commission's structure looks like in terms of, dividing up, cities by size and what that contribution looks like. Opportunities for certain levels of membership that provide certain benefits. I think one of the most important aspects of this is really kind of managing expectations and understanding this is what we're able to deliver on versus what's aspirational and what's long term, and making sure that we're communicating effectively on that front. But the way in which it's going to be structured is we will have a governing board. Currently, that board is small because of our formative stage, but it
Hmm.
will be expanded to include private-public partnership, is the way we see that. And over time, that board will evolve. But the way I see it is I truly want that board to be the decision makers in terms of the consensus builders about what we're going to tackle. And like I said, it will evolve over time to ensure that the geographic diversity of the region is reflected in it. I think that's really critical, and not just by area in terms of the 13 counties being represented, but also diversity in industry and background and expertise in terms of subject matter expertise and the ability to inform on these issues that we're going to need to really good guidance on to help us through this first session and upcoming sessions, in addition to, as you alluded to, what's our federal agenda going to look like in the future?
Hmm. And I know, staying on the board, we have already two inaugural co-chairs. One from Austin, one from San Antonio, and Austin being the Austin co-chair being Gary Farmer, Heritage Title, very storied history of economic development and just involvement in Austin in the region's growth of opportunity Austin. And then remind me from San Antonio who the co-chair is.
Sure, it's Jenna Sauceda Herrera, and Jenna is uh, one of our VPs at USAA, but she's the former head and president CEO of Greater SATX, which
Yes.
is the economic development entity in San Antonio. And then, of course, Gary, and she brings invaluable experience to the table. And of course, Gary, has been doing this for a long time in terms of his expertise and his connections and relationships and the way in which he approaches economic development. He still serves on the executive board of Opportunity Austin, which he was the founder
Right.
of. And of course, we have our, St. Henry Cisneros in San Antonio,
Yeah.
the founder of our organization, who just brings a wealth of knowledge and of course, an incredible credentialed career and tenure. In addition to just having this passion for this that he's had since the days of Target 90, I would argue, when he established that strategic framework for San Antonio and its future, and also set the tone about we got to come up out this with process and structure and discipline in order to execute. So it's not just ad hoc, individual relationships or individual leaders reaching out to individual leaders. We need a platform to convene and a venue for those folks to come in all at once and talk in earnest about how to address these issues.
Mhm. And you mentioned September being the official launch date. Is there a date September has been set yet?
Yeah, we're looking at September 18th in San Marcos, and it's going to be limited in space. So we have a number of folks that we've reached out to already on that list in terms of the leadership that we're requesting to join us. It'll be our inaugural event. But I also do anticipate one of our signatures being um, systematic and consistent polling that
Mhm.
we'll be doing on these issues that expand not just beyond that group that we're inviting to September 18th, but also outwardly to the public over time to get a sense of where folks are. I think polling is going to be helpful from a anecdotal data piece to help inform some of our decisions. That's part of the reason why I'm also on the ground, right? I want to really understand communities. I was really had a great conversation with Judge Snell up in Williamson County, and I had never been to Georgetown, surprisingly, but I'm definitely going back. I mean, it was a terrific town, beautiful town square, lots of activity, lots of people out there, and it was really exciting to see that. And then you think about places like in Austin, um, just the downtown vibrancy is just phenomenal. And every single one of these communities, has this special, unique character and genuineness that they bring to the table, which I think will be we want to move around the district, the region rather, and ensure that folks get a flavor of what other locations in the region look like and feel like.
Mhm. Just final question. So it's a year from now, July 29th, 2027. We've gotten through legislative session, hopefully no special sessions, probably, knock on wood, I don't know. But what would tell you that the Central Texas Alliance is moving in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a terrific question, AJ. I definitely see AJ being a central part of this. Will be one of the results I'll be looking at.
I
And
plan on being involved, yes,
you will,
as
yes,
as,
you
as will the firm.
will. Thank you. No, I do see you being a central part of this work. I think it's really goes down to results. Can we point to one, two, three things that in our early formative stages, but for our existence wouldn't have potentially happened. And being able to look back on those and saying these two or three things that we got done very early on are kind of proof of concept. But eventually, the way I see this from a visionary standpoint, AJ, is the relationships that get built over time, creating so many tangential type of opportunities and connections and building on economic development and business and quality of life, just bringing the awareness of what's happening in one place to another and make a connection that actually produces some type of result that we wouldn't necessarily be able to say we take the credit for doing from a work standpoint, but we can certainly take credit from a convening standpoint that we put those two individuals or businesses or whatever that might be together to develop the relationship and trust that created something that wouldn't have existed but for the existence of the organization. And finally, and ultimately, and this won't happen next year, but it may happen sooner than later. We are the third leg of the triangle stool, and Houston and Dallas have had these regional organizations, and if we're able to create something that's truly unified, I think it can be formidable. And if that's the case, there's a table that we represent where we can build up the triangle over time and for the future together. So that's kind of where we're going with all this.
Love it, love it. Well, we look forward to seeing all that develop this fall into the new year in 27. AJ Rodriguez is the newly appointed CEO of the Central Texas Alliance. AJ, thank you for your time.
AJ, thank you for your time.